So the World Cup ended yesterday, and honestly, it's not really something I would normally pay attention to. But there was one article written about the World Cup that interested me. It was an article for Slate magazine written by Amanda Hess, and the article was entitled "The most beautiful bulges," or the most beautiful butts and the biggest bulges. Why it's great to objectify World Cup players. So I thought that I had a few things to say about that. But first, let's take it off to Miss Hess, and, well, you can see what I'm talking about here.
For some, the World Cup field looks like the pinnacle of international soccer competition. But for others, it's an explosion at the man candy factory. From Jezebel to L, in Queerty and In Out, images of the World Cup's sweat-drenched, thick-thighed contestants are being converted into masturbation material at an alarming pace. For years, Jezebel's long-running Thighlights series has inspired its female gawkers to admire the hamstrings, adductors, and quadriceps of the players on the pitch. But this season, Buzz Iron is making a bid to become the sport's most valuable ogler by drawing out the sexual objectification of male soccer players into so many drool-stained listicles that they have now inspired their own listicle compiling the site's efforts. Since the World Cup kicked off earlier this month, the site has celebrated the competition's most beautiful butts, ranked its best bulges on a scale of 0 to 5 David Beckhams, and invited readers to match the six-pack to the soccer player.
So, we're about 2 sentences in, and she's already used the term explosion at the man candy factory. Because that's not sexist, objectifying, or degrading to men, is it? She couldn't even go for 2 sentences without employing a double standard. Certainly bodes well for the rest of this. But before I get into the main tirade, let's just take a look at the exact paragraph that follows just after that, because I really think her perspective on this matter needs to be fully highlighted in this instance.
The 2014 World Cup marks a bizarre and exciting time in the gender politics of professional sports. When female athletes attract press coverage, we scour their magazine pictorials for signs of sexualization and pick apart their courtside interviews to identify chauvinistic lines of questioning. And yet, we revel in gifs of Cristiano Ronaldo posing in his tighty-whities and Moritz Leitner lifting his jersey to reveal his ADS. When Buzz Iron rides of French soccer player Yon Gourcuff, time to distracted by his beauty to hear what he has to say, everybody's too mesmerized by the lip-licking gifs to throw out the sexism flag. These days, clicking through a slideshow of the world's hottest female soccer players makes you look like a bit of a creep. But admiring the abdominals of male footballers, that just means you have a pulse.
Now, you might think, as I mentioned before, that this is a massively hypocritical line of thinking from a feminist. This is the same group of people who rant and rail about the objectification of women and women being sexualized. According to Amanda, however, it is so totally not that, since when women do it, there's a perfect justification. Because there always is.
On first uncomfortably lingering glance, it appears that we've swapped one sexual double standard for another. But the trade-off isn't actually so clear-cut. We know that commenting on women's bodies is fraud in a way that content-appreciating male assets isn't, Buzz Iron deputy editor-in-chief Shani Hilton said in an email. No one assumes the male athlete is only noteworthy because of the way he looks. And it's true that if you can't bear to look away from the beefcake slideshows, Buzz Iron offers full coverage of the World Cup. You'll have to page through dozens of posts about FIFA politics and fan celebrations to even get the taste of its more provocative material. When it comes to coverage of male soccer, sexual objectification is the icing, not the cake. That's the big difference.
Really? Because I'm pretty sure that a lot of them are, especially by women like you. Listen, Miss Man Candy. Are you honestly trying to tell me that you value these men as anything other than a yummy treat that exists to make you squishy between the thighs? Because I'm not buying it. Especially when you follow that statement up by referring to the World Cup as a beefcake slideshow. I'm just saying that it makes this whole pretense of yours a little laughable. I know, you proceed to try and make the argument that the World Cup coverage has news and stats and sports and blah 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 blah, which makes the sexual objectification, in your words, the icing, not the cake. But you aren't interested in eating the cake. You just want to suck the icing out of a soccer player's... well, you know. The ones who value these athletes as talented athletes are more or less going to be the men. The stats, the news, the FIFA politics are all there because the sport is what's on their mind, not the hot, sweaty men. Well, okay, some of them are thinking about the hot, sweaty men, but since that's not really relevant right now, let's just act like the conservatives and pretend the gays don't exist. Now, there's an inverse implication in this claim that no one really values the male soccer players because of their looks. She rather heavily implies that female athletes are only valuable for their looks. Girl power, I guess. What's funny about this, though, is that she goes on to say herself that women's sports are underattended and over-sexualized. But the question I have to ask here, then, is, why is that? Why aren't women attending all of these women's sports? Maybe because they're too busy eye-humping the male athletes to value these women for their skills and talents, or give a shit about the actual sport. You know, the reason men watch other men compete. She's making one large whopper of an assumption when she says that no one assumes a male athlete is only valued for his looks. Why exactly does she think that these athletes are featured like this? Or like this? Or like this? All sports are filled with very talented athletes who are not featured in magazines or ads because they aren't that attractive. Not to mention her assumption that she knows exactly how all the men who look at female athletes think. You know, when Miss Hess starts writing articles about how Ronaldo scored a winning goal and his shooting record and, oh, by the way, he has a cute butt, then I'll start buying what she's selling. Until then, all I want is her answer to this question. If men are not just being constantly valued for their looks, like women, then explain this. Exactly what other value is this guy being valued for by you chicks? In her words, this is basically some kind of balancing game. Because men objectify women, and that's bad, because feminists say so, it's okay for women to do it back to men since they aren't doing it as much, because, again, feminists say so. Essentially doing a spectacular job of relegating the complexities of gender inequality to the intellectual level of a schoolyard squabble. Now, I'm going to be honest here. No one has ever really looked to me as a bastion of moral integrity, but then I've never claimed to be one either. It does seem to me, however, that if you're going to claim principles on the moral high ground, you should at least endeavor to hold yourself up to that higher standard of behavior. You see, when you see Cristiano Ronaldo running around sweating with his top off and a bunch of women drooling and rubbing themselves, as a feminist, you're supposed to say, this is degrading and dehumanizing and devalues him as a person to be treated as nothing more than an object of desire with no will of his own. Not, yeah, shake it on over to mommy, my hot little Portuguese love monkey. If objectification is bad, then it has to be bad for everyone to do. You can't just claim that different rules apply to you and yours, especially if you're going to try and sell your bullshit under the blanket of equality. Take my advice, Amanda. Stop trying to bullshit yourself out of your hypocrisy. Just admit that you're wrong, and it's perfectly okay for both men and women to ogle and get their rocks off over attractive people of either gender. I won't tell anyone. Scout's honor. Fucking feminists. I'll see you later, guys. If you like this video, like and subscribe. I'm out.